On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk service contracts that aren't always RMR, a new online tool for quoting VR, smart home, and home theater. Access Networks adds a new security head, and power, a lot of times, is your issue. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek episode 60, Scalable Issues.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Access Networks and by Peerless AV, the official outdoor display provider of the Daytona International Speedway.
This is ResiWeek.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and today I am pleased to be joined by Jimmy Paskey of Surgex. How are you, sir?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. It's your first time, so we're going to be extra nice. I promise.
Awesome.
He won't.
No, I won't. But notwithstanding, the gentleman who just popped up in his oh-so-friendly way is Todd Puma. He is the president of the Source Home Theater. How are you, Todd?
Doing well, Matt. Doing really well. Thank you for pointing that out in my oh-so-nice way.
Well, you know, got to do my part, right?
I want to give you a virtual hug for that one.
Aw, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. All right, gentlemen, let's jump right into a story that comes to us from Residential Systems. This is from Joseph Kolowski, saying that service contracts and RMR are not the same thing. Now, as you read through this article, you know, one of the things that has been pushed in both the CEDIA channel and the Infocom channel has been that ever important RMR and how to get it and how to obtain it. Now, as you read through this story, Joseph goes on to point out a couple of, you know, kind of really key things that essentially service contracts don't necessarily have to be a paid service plan, that there is a difference between, you know, having a service contract that's dictating your terms of service and your service level agreements that don't necessarily require an opt-in paid membership type plan. Through the article, he goes through to further elaborate on that and kind of show you the best ways to position your company to do that. Todd, looking at obviously this article, but also really RMR as a whole, is there something to be said for properly managing the expectation of what your service level is for each client, whether they're paid or not?
Oh, no, I agree. What Joseph stated here is actually what we've been talking about for weeks right now with my employees, is setting expectations from the initial meeting that we have, from the consult. And because once expectations are set, the customer understands what you're going to be providing and your service you're going to be providing. So when the service is over and your installation is over, then the customers know what they're getting and not getting. Like he stated here, which I really respect, is he talked a little bit about still offering a service up to a certain point that's not paid for because you want to give a great customer service to keep the customer wanting more. But you shouldn't give it all. You shouldn't give everything to the client, so then your value gets lost. We've been pushing the service contracts. We make a really good point of, sorry, phone's going off. Oh man, that's kind of embarrassing right there. But at least it's Star Wars. All right, so back to what I was saying. It wasn't the YMCA again. That's a good thing. I just changed that. But back to the important stuff. All right. So with the service agreements and the contracts, that's something we've been doing for a long time. That's how we make our residual. And that's also how we build a great customer experience. With the clients of today and the systems as large as they are, you want to be able to offer something to the clients in order to protect them and protect yourself and make sure they have the greatest customer experience they could possibly have. I have nothing more to say.
Jimmy, I'm not sure how you're going to follow up that lovely cell phone ring.
No, I think it was, hopefully it won't happen, but because I'm sure my ringtone's probably way more feminine. No, I'm just kidding.
As long as it's Taylor Swift, we're good.
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's perfect.
I think you could have almost called this article charge or not to charge, or what we do, what we don't do. And I think over the past easily 10 years or so, it's always interested me that some dealers charge for services. Sometimes dealers give it away for free. And when you hear dealers say they give it away for free, sometimes you think, oh, like for a month, for 90 days? No, for 6 months, for a year, for 3 years. And that's kind of where I shake my head wondering, why does it have to be free? Because I guarantee you my electrician, my plumber, the guy coming to do any kind of remodeling work, he's not coming out to my house for free anytime, unless there's
Right.
something royal that he screwed up.
Well, and that raises a really good point. When you look at, supplying a system and installing the system, obviously you have to cover some things, right? If the receiver dies 10 weeks into, their use of it, you've got to cover that. But if they've, dropped a remote, broken a remote, or decided all of a sudden that, we want to change sources that are available in different rooms, if you haven't laid out your service plan properly and your service level properly that your client has signed off on, it leads to confusion. What's the best way for a dealer to go about doing that without, offending the client?
Well, that's a case-by-case study. Every job is handled differently. What we offer is a
But
one.
you've got to, you've got to have a system though.
No,
you
yeah.
can't expect your employees to make it up or pull it out of a hat for each individual job.
Well, I agree, but that's where the expectations are set from the beginning. And also when you're doing the last final walkthrough with the client, you explain what is included. Hardware, materials, if something messes up in the system, we lifetime guarantee, the wiring and the programming. But with all the other details is we have a very, very, very long list of things that we're going to provide and how long we're going to provide it for. The warranties, it's because the product is warranty doesn't mean we're going to do the labor for free if it comes back. Again, based on the client, based on the long history that we have in case-by-case studies, that certain clients do have a little bit more wiggle room than other customers. But overall, we have to provide that service to them, and we have to handle it case-by-case. We're going to send down what is included and not included. But again, with my staff and, what they're handling, they're not going to set those expectations with the customers. They're there to do a job. And when a question is asked, there's only a couple of people that they could go to. Myself, Mark Feinberg that works with us, and many other people that are on the staff are just on the staff. But for myself and Mark, we're the people communicating with our customers. So it's only 2 lines of communication versus multiple lines of communication. Larger companies might handle that differently, but we handle it this way, and it's been working and it's efficient. Documentation, paperwork, making sure just like we get in paperwork when we go to a car dealership, initial here, initial here, initial here. Explain to the customers, give them a hard copy, make sure it's always available in the rack area or in somewhere that they feel comfortable holding it, and constantly hit back to the communication logs.
Very good. Gentlemen, let's move on to a article that comes to us from CE Pro. This is a online quotation tool that is providing smart home theater, and most importantly, and maybe most fun, virtual reality estimates. Now, this is Andrew Lucas London. It is a online tool that allows a homeowner to kind of scope out their system and choose a number of rooms, and Andrew Lucas London will essentially build either a VR walkthrough or a fully interactive design experience so that they can fully experience what their theater or virtual reality or smart home system will work and look like. Gentlemen, is this something that, outside of incredibly high-end projects, is this something that has a place in, everyday home theater?
Yeah, so I guess I'll speak up. I think it's all relative in this business. I'll ask one guy, what is low end? He says 20 grand. I'll ask another guy, what is low end? He says 300,000. And I mean, to me, 300 grand, even 20 grand is a lot of money to put up. And I think at the end of the day, either of those customers are going to be under the impression that they're spending a good bit of money. And I think either one of them could appreciate the ability to review the project in a, I'll say, closer to transparent way. Because it's interesting, as I was reading this article that's talking about transparency, I almost felt like I physically had to see what this process looked like in order to see how transparent it was.
My thoughts exactly. Todd, does this broach the conversation, though, of as we're moving forward technology-wise, just in general, that we now have the opportunity and the methods to, you know, outside of just doing a laundry list of, hey, you're getting this stuff, and here's a you know, a paint mock-up of what your user interface will look like. Are we to the point that this is really going to start to become commonplace of providing not only just 3D renders, but 3D walkthroughs and virtual reality walkthroughs?
I think it is. Listen, we're moving forward, right? We have voice control at this point that we never expect to have. With systems like this and showing the customer something, giving them something visually or something to hold, and in this case, you're not holding it, but you're holding the virtual reality glasses if this is the way it's going to go, or the iPhone. I feel it is a good user experience. Right now, is it going to cost more? Yeah, it's going to cost a little bit more. Is it for higher end customers? Just like you stated, that $20,000, no matter what the customer's spending, they're spending money and there's a value to that. And there's no reason to put a target point on it. But if this becomes more affordable and it becomes something that we kind of get handed to us in an app control and we're not paying, you know, for an amount of time that we're investing into it, I feel that this would be something I would utilize. It's a great tool. And, you know, the first time anyone who put on those Samsung Oculus glasses and looked through it and put the earbuds in, it's just, wow, it's amazing. Just that experience alone can sell a customer on what you're going to provide for them, that level of excellence that you're giving them, the amount of time you're investing. If you're investing that much into this aspect, just imagine what you're going to be investing into their home.
Well, and when you look at, you know, how far this has come, the fact that we can now, you know, I remember the first time that we offered a client like a 3D render that we could actually move around and navigate on the screen. The first time we offered that to a client to show them what their theater was going to look like, you know, the awe and wonder on their face was fantastic. And it was so much easier to sell that system because they could experience it. It wasn't just a, you know, a printed quote
Elevation.
that they went through. Exactly.
Yeah.
Something they can't read.
Yeah. CAD.
Now that this is even more so available and we can throw that VR in there, it's going to, in my opinion, one, it's going to separate dealers, right? You'll have higher end guys that are able to continue to play in that higher end space because they can offer this. And the lower end guys, if they're quoting against something, you know, if you show up with that 3D render and somebody else is showing some virtual reality, you're probably going to lose that. You're going to lose that quote. You're going to lose that bid.
Could potentially, for sure.
Well, it's all about the customer if they're at a price point. You know, a lot of the time, it's not all about the bells and whistles. It's about the price. That's all they care about. They don't know or understand the user experience. They don't understand that you pay for what you get you pay for what you get. And they're going to look at the guy who's offering all this belt like, wow, it's virtual reality. This guy must be expensive. You know, they're not going to look at it as, oh, these guys are really putting attention to detail. The price shoppers, and a lot of our customers are DIY or smart shoppers at this point who know it all because they could get to Amazon and read a sentence that says, yep, that's what I need. And that's exactly what it's going to do.
I'm going to counter that, though, and say that nobody who's going to play in the VR space is really going to be dealing with someone who actually will ever take the time to check an Amazon review.
At this point, right?
Yeah, at this point.
A lot of people have their assistants who do all the work. So the guys who don't have all the money, so they're a little more savvy, right? They understand the real world.
And something I was reading into when I was reviewing this article, it almost seems that you could go online and shop for your system at this lucasstudios.com. You could put your system together and in all transparency, have your price spit out. So then at that point, I am kind of going around shopping Amazon or whoever because I've got all the bits and pieces that are going into the system. That was a little bit alarming to me, I'll say, only as I look at the entire CEDIA space. I kind of thought right after reading, damn, we better make sure we up our game. And I guess by upping our game, we need to be on that same program or better. So we're able to give, like you said, Matt, the virtual reality demonstration, the package as well.
Well, where it gets interesting to me is it's not unlike a design build spec from the commercial world, where you have a designer who designs a system and it goes to, the general contractor, who then just submits it out for bid. And, there is something to be said for, I know for myself, my company hates doing that kind of work. We don't like it at all. But there are many companies that make a very good living doing that and offering, essentially strictly bid work situations. And at least in this case, in theory, it's being designed properly. So at least the end user is getting a functional system that, again, they're still allowing themselves to have a relationship with an integrator who can help them through the process, et cetera, et cetera. But from the initial design spec, some of that work is done. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to a quick article that comes to us from strategy.com and our good friend Ted Green. Access Networks has hired a network security new director of IT. They hired Roy Beiser, I hope I am saying that correctly, who is a former Intel exec. And his essential job is going to be to provide Access Networks with the highest IT and cybersecurity standards for its company's base of integration pros and their clients. What's fun about this is, we here at AVNation, we know Access Networks very well. We know Haggai very well. Something that he's talked about a lot is the fact that AV integrators really need to understand how network security affects their systems and obviously affects their networks and puts their clients at risk. Todd, obviously this is a big deal, but is this something that, pretty much every other manufacturer is going to have to kind of follow suit with to properly help protect their clients' networks?
I would just say for the residential market, yeah, because if you talk to any IT guy in any of the commercial markets and you say, oh, I'm offering, we'll say Package, Luxol, or certain other brands that I won't bring up, they'll laugh. They'll be like, that's not really network.
Well, now I want to know what brands you're not bringing up.
There's so many. Anything residentially focused. The thing is, these IT guys understand security because they're working in large Fortune 500 companies. The residential brands, it's still new. A lot of dealers are just getting into this. They don't really even understand, virtually like anything, VPN, VLANs, managed networks, and they definitely don't understand security. Security is something that hasn't been spoken about for a long period of time. It's something that's just been approached with all the different hacks that are happening. I believe after the show, Mr. Robot, and what happened with that home automation system, a lot of my clients are discussing that with me. If it happened in this show, can it happen to us? And that's a question that I would love to get answered. Like from actually Haggai on this point is how we're going to handle that and how we answer that back to our clients. Because there is a security risk. No matter how much we know about the network, I don't think we've ever been trained enough about what really the risks are and how we can avoid that from happening.
See, and that's a perfect point, and I think that's exactly why a guy is trying to align himself appropriately and trying to continue to drive the CEDIA channel with its interest in mind, right? With this person that does have the expertise, their new hire, and I think they're also elevating their game because you do have Luxol and Package and Snap AV's networking product. A guy's got all of his products that he distributes. You have to be able to provide some level of service, something different, something better to the dealer base. And I agree with you, Todd, that the dealer base mostly understands or is understanding networking. I thought 3 to 5 years ago, everybody got off of the Apple Airport Extremes, and I met up with the dealer last month who said, we just did that. And I said, well, that's weird because everybody knows you have to have a solid network. You have to have solid power as a foundation in order not to have problems. And networking is something totally tangible. My issue is a whole different game. But yeah, I think a guy's trying to set his company up for a good alignment with the CEDIA channel moving forward.
Now, where this gets entertaining is, Jimmy, you said it very well. It's a scalable system, it's a scalable issue. Whereas what some people determine to be secure is not what someone else would determine to be secure. And obviously, the space that Haggai and Access Networks plays in is a little higher than guys that may be using some of the other products that are out there. But there's something to be said for doing the best that you can for your client based on where they're at. And, what I've noticed over the years is that there are AV dealers that don't understand even how a VLAN works. So they, can't offer that type of security or systems to their clients. Now, Todd, where do dealers need to essentially cut the cord with dealing with network and pass that on to somebody who is more equipped to properly handle that when they don't have the networking acumen to do it?
Well, that's really the question that they need to ask themselves. It's honesty. It's not about the dollar. If you feel like you can't handle something, just pass it along to the professionals. That's what a guy in his company is there for. Is we get a lot of large projects, and you know what? There's things that come up that not even we can answer. You know what? That's where you need the professionals. Is I specialize in so many different areas, wearing so many different hats, and I feel the same with my guys as well. Is they're answering a lot of questions, and networking is the most important part of the system. And you know what? With the projects we're doing and the questions that can be answered, and if you can't answer them, pass it to the other guys that know what they're doing, like Access Networks.
Jimmy, how hard is it for dealers to actually do that? Like it's easy for us to sit here and say, hey, if you realize you're over your head, you should pass this on. But how many dealers would actually look at it and take a hard, long look and say, you know what, we can handle the basic stuff, but when we get to this level, we're going to pass that on because we don't know.
I think if they were smart, they would. But I think the second you say you're not the expert in networking, and networking is such a vital component of a system. Again, if a homeowner's spending a lot of money with you, I think they're going to think otherwise. Like maybe I shouldn't spend this money with this guy.
You shouldn't have to say that. So that's the question, right? You're handling your company is handling that. You're partnering with somebody, which the customer doesn't see it on their end. It's a seamless interaction. You're handling prompts. The buck stops with the Source home theater. The buck stops right there. So that's not the end that they need to know. The end is that they need to know to hire somebody that's going to take care of their customer. You need to align yourself with professionals. And companies like Access Networks they're not going to cut you out. They're not going to try to go to your customer in 6 months to a year and say, hey, I'm a New York-based company. I'll manage your network on the side just because the relationship didn't work out. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's a really good point because I think then if you don't go to somebody like an Access or maybe some other, maybe Luxel does this or PackEdge does this down the road, but if you don't do that, it's a consistency issue as well. Your level of work might be completely different than the guy who's helping you out, the subcontractor.
Right. And people get hungry. That's the thing is people get hungry and they do silly things. At the point they might not, they're getting that project. They're happy. They're not looking on paying their bills. But a lot of time, no matter how high end they are, they need to feed them a certain amount of guys. They're going to go out and do something that's against their integrity or against their principles of running their business. And it happens. I've seen it many times. 12 years of being in business, you could trust a lot of people and they're great people. But when money gets in the way and times get hard, they change.
Yeah.
Very good. Gentlemen, let's go to our last article very quickly. This comes to us from Sound and Communications. It's a case study on power protection. So, in our last article, we really talked about, obviously, the network and how important it is. And Jimmy kind of alluded to it's your backbone is your network and your power. And this article dives right into it and kind of covers some of the basics as far as what the culprits are to putting noise and problems into your system from a power standpoint. Jimmy, obviously you're with Surgex. This is something that you guys kind of know a little bit about. Yeah. Just like the networking side, how often do dealers overlook the importance of stable power and clean power when it comes to their systems? And what can they do to properly,
I've always seen these things transpire over the course of time where, call it the guys who are doing the most sophisticated, complex systems, upper echelon, if you will, but everyone's good. It's all relative. This upper echelon of guys doing the most complex systems, they tend to be the guys who will say things like 7 or so years ago, we need a damn good network. Because even this, just the Marantz receiver, a Blu-ray, a set-top box, and an Apple TV is causing us grief. And that's only a few devices. Now I had a home in Naples with 500 IP addressable devices in the home. So you look at that and you go, that would be a nightmare for something like an Airport Extreme. So 3 to 5 years ago, dealers got into we need a solid network. I think literally around mid 2015 to late 2015 was the first I had heard of iterations from not the top of the top, but maybe the top 50 dealers in the country saying, we need to standardize on power. Jimmy, can you help us? We'll have a dialogue with you guys. We'll have a dialogue with other vendors as well. Can you help us on standardizing on power? Because when the network goes down, it's tangible. It's in your face. When you have power problems, the light bulb's still on. An electrician can see 120 out of the outlet. So where's the problem? That's the issue I see all the time.
That's actually an issue that we've been encountering and it's also my weakest link. And for my company, our training my employees on is power is something we don't know a lot about. And, what you're stating is that we had an electrician come in a few weeks ago. They managed everything. Everything was fine. There's nothing happening. We're good to go. But obviously a blue bolt, I'm sorry for saying another company, but a blue bolt blew out in the rack. And I never seen this happen before. So there's obviously an issue happening, power issues, power outages, things are dipping, and we can't figure out where it's from. So this is perfect for a lot of other deals. I'm sure they're going to say the same thing I'm stating, is power is something that nobody understands. Not nobody, but very little understands.
A lot of people don't understand. And we have a diagnostic tool that has helped at least 150 to 200 dealers in this past year. But they do what you do. They suspect a power problem. They measure voltage, it's 120. And then we go and we discover neutral to ground voltage is extremely high and it's taking product out. We were able to connect the dots. And I agree with you. This is a brand new thing for dealers. And I know that around 20 or so, 20 to 50, somewhere in that range, have said, we suspect it's power and we know the electrician knows what they're doing, but we want to investigate further.
Well,
and that's all go ahead.
When there's something to be said for, just like when you're selling and installing lighting control, not every electrician understands how lighting control works on a large scale. And by extension, not every electrician can walk into a house and test an outlet and go, oh yeah, no, it looks fine. There shouldn't be a problem here. Mm-hmm. They're not all, just like every other industry, they're not all well equipped across the board to solve funky electrical issues. My company's seen this for years in house worship projects where you've got 3-phase and, they're hiring some guy that goes to the church to do their electrical, but he's not a commercial electrician.
I think Lauren's article hit it on the head. Products have gotten way more sensitive than they ever have been. And you need good power, you need good networking to try to resolve, not react to the issues that those jobs are having because of that.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's cut it there. Thank you both so much for being with us today. Jimmy, where can people connect with you?
I'm at jimmy.paschke@amatech.com. Email.
Perfect.
Jimmy Paschke on Twitter.
There you go. All right, Todd, thank you again for joining us. Where can people find you?
They can find me at residentialsystems.com as well as thesourcehometheater.com.
Excellent. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. As for myself, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and pretty much every other social network platform. But more importantly, please take a moment to stop by AVNation.tv. You'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our underwriters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Thanks again. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.